Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
He was the larger-than-life star of a pop culture phenomenon.
You shall feel the wrath of the pythons. You shall feel the wrath of Hulkamania. This is where the power lies.
Helping turn pro wrestling into a multi-billion-dollar business.
Remembering Hulk Hogan.
From the CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson.
I'm Maurice Dubois. We'll have more about the passing of Hulk Hogan in just a moment.
But we begin with the Jeffrey Epstein because as Democrats and some Republicans demand more information about it, the Deputy U.S. Attorney General today interviewed Epstein's former girlfriend and co-conspirator, who's doing time in federal prison in Florida.
President Trump has been trying to get the Epstein story out of the headlines, more so since it was reported that Mr. Trump's name comes up a number of times in Epstein-related files at the Justice Department.
Today, the president attempted to shift the focus to the Federal Reserve, whose chairman he has threatened to fire for interest rates.
The president has also been critical of Chairman Jerome Powell's $2.5 billion renovation of Fed headquarters and the former real estate.
Tonight we have breaking news as we come on the air involving President Trump and the Jeffrey Epstein case. The Justice Department spending hours today meeting with Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. So what's behind this meeting? Also breaking tonight, just outside New York City, an ambush. An officer shot in the face. And in Ohio, the other ambush. And we have just learned tonight, an officer has now died. First this evening, the highly unusual meeting. The Deputy Attorney General going to meet with Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. The meeting today lasting 6 hours. She's serving 20 years for sex trafficking. So what do both sides want out of this meeting? And it comes amid pressure on the White House to release the Epstein files. Also tonight, professional wrestling icon Hulk Hogan has died. Paramedics responded to calls of cardiac arrest. Rocketing to fame in the 1980s in wrestling and movies, and the scandals outside the ring, including what he said about race. Tonight, his complicated legacy as fans now pay tribute. Tonight, the dangerous, life-threatening heat. 140 million Americans under extreme heat alerts. In New York City, will soon feel like 105. Philadelphia, 106. Washington, D.C. will feel like 109 degrees. Lee Goldberg standing by. Tonight, the alarming attacks on police outside New York City. An officer has been shot in the face. Also, that disturbing ambush in Ohio. And moments ago, we've learned one of the officers has now died. Tonight, 24 hours after Brian Koberger was sentenced to life in prison, the families of those Idaho college students have now learned horrific new details about how their loved ones were killed. One student stabbed more than 50 times, many of them defensive wounds. She was fighting back. An extraordinary moment at the Federal Reserve Building playing out late today in front of the cameras. President Trump and the Federal Reserve Chair amid the president's pressure on Jerome Powell to bring down rates. The sudden move by the president, the numbers he pulled out. Jerome Powell then shooting them down. Tonight, the daring rescue in rough waters off the East Coast as a boat slams into the rocks. And tonight here we remember a beloved Grammy-winning musician. Just a few notes and you'll know the song. Tonight, the music of Chuck Mangione. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
The Justice Department is suing New York City and Mayor Eric Adams over the city's migrant sanctuary policies. This is the same DOJ that dropped a corruption case against Adams earlier this year. This is also obviously why you've got this heated mayoral race going on in New York City, where the police officers are backing Eric Adams. You've got Cuomo in that race as well. And it comes days on the Democrat side, and it comes days after an off-duty CBP officer was shot in the face in a New York park by someone who was in the country illegally. Now, the feds say that both of these suspects were, as I said, here illegally. They had prior arrests, had been released back out onto the street repeatedly. Correspondent Nate Foy reports live. This is going to get a lot of attention, this lawsuit. Hi, Nate.
Hey, Martha. Yeah, the complicated relationship between the Trump administration and New York City Mayor Eric Adams gets even more complicated with this latest development just in the past few minutes. We're learning that the Justice Department has filed a lawsuit against the city of New York as well as Mayor Adams and other New York City officials over its sanctuary policies. And we are just beginning to go through through this, reported a 37-page lawsuit, but essentially the argument from the Justice Department is that the sanctuary laws violate the supremacy clause of the Constitution. This is very similar to the arguments that we've seen the Trump administration make against Chicago and also Los Angeles. This was filed in the Eastern District of New York, and the lawsuit references those two illegal migrants that you just mentioned, accused of shooting an off-duty CBP officer in the face, who's now in stable condition. Now, those migrants, both from the Dominican Republic, had been arrested several times by the NYPD in the years leading up to the shooting. Both of them were released multiple times despite having active ICE detainers and deportation orders in place. Now, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem blamed sanctuary policies for this shooting, and Borders Czar Tom Homan had similar criticism today. Listen to this.
Absolutely. Sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. Hard stop. Bottom line, that's what it is. And President Trump made a commitment a couple weeks ago that we're going to prioritize sanctuary cities. I made a statement the other day about New York. We're going to flood the zones. The sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want. More agency in the communities and more worksite enforcement.
And this is a nuanced situation for Eric Adams because he has criticized the sanctuary policies before, but also yesterday he wrote a letter requesting an inspection on the 10th floor of a federal immigration facility here in New York City because it's supposed to be a short-term processing facility. But Mayor Adams wrote that based off video that is circulating online, it appears that perhaps some people are staying there for longer than they are supposed to be.
On this Thursday night, not guilty. All 5 men at the Hockey Canada sex assault trial learned their fate.
She ended up being confronted in court with some inconsistencies in her statement.
The judge's reasons and the reaction inside and outside the courtroom. 3 workers trapped inside a mine in BC. The enormous amount of debris blocking them. The U.S. Justice Department meets with Jeffrey Epstein's longtime accomplice, what Ghislaine Maxwell might want in exchange for her testimony. No end in sight for Gaza's hunger crisis, the finger-pointing as Palestinians starve. Plus, he was a pop culture powerhouse.
Well, let me tell you something, brother!
The complicated legacy of wrestling legend Hulk Hogan.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. A high-profile sexual assault trial involving 5 former members of Canada's World Junior Hockey team has ended with not guilty decisions for each of the accused. The trial followed years of police investigations, a multi-million-dollar civil settlement, and intense scrutiny of hockey culture. An Ontario Superior Court justice delivered the decision in a packed London courtroom this afternoon, clearing Michael McLeod, Alex Fermenton, Carter Hart, Dylan Dubé, and Cal Foote of all charges, stating, "I do not find the evidence of EM, the woman at the center of the allegations, to be either credible or reliable."
So today the accused have been declared not innocent, but simply not proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Those in institutional leadership roles, this case should be a wake-up call that more is needed from you to prevent sexual violence.
The public narrative of this event was, until this trial, one-sided and untested.
To the last-minute plea with junior doctors to halt their strike.
Sir Keir Starmer is warning it puts patients at risk and plays into the hands of those who want the NHS to fail.
But with unions digging in, will this standoff sink the health service?
Britain's shoplifting epidemic surges to a record high, with thefts rising by 20% in a year. It comes as the government announced tough Texas-style courts to be rolled out across the country.
Epping's police commissioner tells the government to stop sending migrants to unsuitable hotels to avoid fueling community tension. It comes as councillors demand asylum seekers are closed amid fears of a summer of unrest.
Donald Trump heads to Scotland. Beginning today, the US president will make a 4-day visit to his golf resort in Ayrshire. Although the trip is being described by the White House as a private visit, he will meet with the Prime Minister.
Tributes pouring for the wrestling legend Hulk Hogan, who's died at the age of 71.
As a survey shows that sewing and needlework are dying out in Britain, we're asking, should domestic skills be taught in school?
And sport this morning, Newcastle United's Alexander Isak has said that he wants to leave with Liverpool, ready to bounce. He doesn't want to leave Liverpool, he wants to leave Newcastle with Liverpool, ready to bounce. Good day for England, by the way. In the 4th test against India yesterday, and Emma Raducanu beats a Grand Slam winner in Washington.
Bit of a switch around with the weather today. If you were dull and damp yesterday, chances are you'll see some warm sunshine today. And if you had some sunny spells yesterday, greater chance for a little bit of rain today. If you can't remember what weather you had yesterday, then join me later for a full forecast.
Just on 6
o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Françoise Petrovich's Soleil. Watch Paris des Arts with Valérie Fayolle on France 24 and France24.com.
Hello and welcome back to the programme. You're watching Daybreak on France 24. Thousands are evacuated as fierce shelling between Thailand and Cambodia continues for a second day, their worst conflict in over a decade. France plans to recognise the state of Palestine at the UN General Assembly. It had become the only G7 country to do so, drawing the anger of the US and Israel. And France's death rate overtakes its birth rate for the first time since the Second World War. Its dropping fertility is still higher than most rich countries.
Good morning, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. On today's programme, a British doctor brings us his first-hand account on treating children and toddlers in Gaza. Plus, ahead of the Belgian Grand Prix, we'll hear from Max Verstappen on the sacking of Red Bull team principal Christian Horner. It's Friday, the 25th of July. Starvation grips Gaza. We hear from a recently returned British surgeon who claims the IDF is shooting civilians at 8 points. He also says it's almost like a game of target practice. The Prime Minister holds an emergency call with German and French counterparts today as a group of MPs say now is the time to recognise a Palestinian state. 50,000 doctors in England's NHS begin a 5-day walkout in the next hour. Will be live on the picket line. New online child safety laws come into force today, but campaigners say they've been let down with government prioritising the needs of big tech. In sport, England will be confident of building a big first innings lead over India on day 3 of the 4th test at Old Trafford. Good morning, everyone. A British surgeon has told Sky News there's profound malnutrition in Gaza and claimed IDF soldiers are shooting civilians at 8 points. He says like a game of target practice. Dr. Nick Maynard recently returned to the UK after 4 weeks working inside the NASA hospital.
I saw young teenage boys, sometimes as young as 11, 12, 13, who had been shot at these food distribution points. They had gone there to get food for their starving family.
It's been a fantastic ride. Thursday at 8, ABC and ABC iView. Today, the Prime Minister issues a strongly worded statement on Gaza, saying Israel's denial of aid to killing of civilians cannot be ignored. Richard Miles and Penny Wong discuss the AUKUS agreement with their UK counterparts in Sydney. Concerns raised over a spike in influenza infections combined with slowing vaccination rates in children. And tributes for wrestling superstar Hulk Hogan, who's died at the age of 71. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Miriam Korwa. But for some breaking news, a man has died after suffering a medical episode minutes after being tasered by police in Perth overnight. Police say they were trying to restrain a man who was acting erratically in the backyard of a home in Embleton overnight. They said the man had entered the Priestley Street home just after midnight and had smashed windows. He was not known to the people who lived there. Police said the man was tasered in an attempt to restrain and arrest him. He suffered a medical episode and died. The Prime Minister...
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Rani Samtani. At this hour, Thailand and Cambodia trade fire at the border for a second day, with deadly clashes erupting over disputed territories. More than 100,000 people have been forced to flee the violence as the death toll rises. Philippine ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, tells CNA the trade deal struck with Washington is far from done. He sees more room for negotiations, hoping to lower tariffs to 15% from 19%.
The percentage is not as big as some people may think it is. We're not dependent completely on our exports to the United States, and our products can be exported to other countries as well.
Plus, Singapore's GIC says its returns fell to their lowest level in 5 years, and the Sovereign Wealth Fund is bracing for tougher times ahead, warning of more volatility in a world in flux.
Africa News. The news.
Patrice Edouard Ngaimsona, former head of the Central African Republic's Football Federation, found guilty of 28 war crimes and crimes against humanity at the International Criminal Court. He and ex-militia commander Alfred Yekatom, known as Rambo, were accused of orchestrating brutal attacks on Castle's Muslim population between 2013 and 2014. Yekatom was found guilty of 20 charges. He's been sentenced to 15 years in prison, while Ngaimsona received 12. The verdict caps off a nearly 4-year-long trial with more than 170 witnesses and 20,000 pieces of evidence presented. Both men led anti-Bacala militias, mostly Christian figures who rose up after Muslim Sakala rebels seized power in 2013. Prosecutors say Ngaimsona funded and directed the violence, while Yekatom led attacks on civilians in Bangui in December of 2013, and half the capital fled.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the trial of the former Minister of Justice resumed on July 23rd before the Court of Appeal. Constant Mutamba is being prosecuted for embezzlement related to the construction of a new prison in Kisangani. The transfer attempt of $19 million is of particular interest to the judiciary. After the court rejected the exceptions raised by his lawyers, Constant Mutamba was extensively interrogated about the case with over 4 hours of questions and answers in what he has repeatedly described as a historical trial. From the witness stand, he said that he was gambling with his future and asked to be given time to express himself. The next hearing was scheduled for 30th of July.
It's Russia's latest power move in the Sahel. A new report by the Timbuktu Institute revealing Russia has shifted from the notorious Wagner mercenary group to a new state-run force called African Corps. 3.5 years after Wagner fighters first arrived in Mali, they officially exited on June 6th. Hailing its alleged success in the West African country, Wagner took to Telegram to say that its mission was complete and that it was returning home. Almost immediately, Russia's Ministry of Defense stepped in, deploying African Corps to take over, this time fully under the state's control. 1 month on, the Timbuktu Institute has released its report, in which it concludes that Russia is cementing its military and diplomatic influence in countries like Mali. Unlike Wagner's shadowy private status, African Corps is run directly by Moscow, linked to Russia's defense ministry and military intelligence. According to the reports, the deployment of African Corps ends the era of denial and signals a bold, strategic and long-term Russian presence in West Africa. It could mark a significant step towards rebuilding Syria's war-battered economy. Damascus and Riyadh announcing dozens of investment agreements touching a wide range of sectors spanning real estate, telecommunications and finance. The deal inked at the Syrian-Saudi Investment Forum is expected to generate billions of dollars and tens of thousands of jobs. During this forum, we will sign 47 agreements and memoranda of understanding with a total estimated value of around 24 billion Saudi riyals. Saudi Arabia has emerged as a key backer of Syria's interim government, led by former rebel commander President al-Shara, following the swift fall of Bashar al-Assad. But Syria faces enormous challenges. The UN estimated in 2017 that post-war reconstruction would cost at least $250 billion, highlighting the steep road ahead for recovery. Acclaimed filmmaker Spike Lee has just added another feather to his cap, but his president appointing Lee and his wife as thematic ambassadors to the Afro-descendant diaspora in the United States. The couple will be tasked with promoting the Beninese government's programs and initiatives focused on reconnecting Afro-descendants with their roots in Benin through culture, history and heritage. Spike Lee, best known for directing Malcolm X and serving as president of the Cannes Film Festival, is also a long-standing advocate for black communities worldwide. In a related effort, Benin has launched a new online portal for Afro-descendants to apply for Beninese nationality. Hundreds have already applied, including Tonya Lee.
Art restorers have successfully taken down a deteriorating graffiti piece by the renowned street artist Banksy, known as the Migrant Child, from a building that overlooks a Venetian canal. The removal from the wall of Palazzo San Pantalo was executed in collaboration with individuals associated with the enigmatic British street artist, as stated by the Venice-based bank IFIS Art Program, which promotes art and culture. Once the restoration is finished, the bank plans to showcase the artwork to the public as part of free cultural events organized by IFIS Art. However, no specific timeline has been provided.
Tonight, the sudden death of an American icon and wrestling legend, Hulk Hogan, the shirt-shredded giant that entertained millions the world over, died at a hospital in Florida. We'll retrace his explosive rise between the turnbuckles to movies as Hulkamania took over, an all-American persona in the ring and his battles outside of it, his use of steroids and a sex tape scandal that turned into a landmark lawsuit, plus his dramatic entrance into the world of politics. Also breaking tonight, the Deputy Attorney General meeting with Jeffrey Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. At the same time, President Trump is under pressure about the handling of that case. Bank battle, the awkward photo op with the Fed chair as Jerome Powell and the president publicly disagree, correcting each other on live television. Our team inside of Gaza documenting the dire starvation emergency, the alarming images as the crisis deepens, the children fighting for nutrition. In Idaho, the lead prosecutor in the Brian Kohberger case, speaking to our Liz Kreutz, what Kohberger said to a woman he met on a dating website about the scariest way to die, involving the type of knife used in the murders. The cost of denial. He went to a doctor's office for an injection and ended up being charged hospital prices. Gotti Schwartz on the surprise facility fees showing up in more and more Americans' bills. And when her health kept her from her elementary school send-off, her classmates, the community, even the high school marching band made a joyful noise for her return. Nightly News starts right now. This is NBC. Good evening, I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Navaz. On the News Hour tonight, the United States says it's leaving Gaza ceasefire negotiations, blaming Hamas, while Palestinians face mass starvation.
This is famine. They bring us aid on these trucks, and all these young people go to get some aid. My kids go with them, too. If you're going for a bag of flour, you're walking to your potential death.
In a rare move, the president visits the mentioning of pressure on Fed chair Jerome rates.
And Columbia University agrees to pay the Trump administration and crack down on student protests in exchange for federal funding being restored.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The World Health Organization's warning Gaza is suffering from man-made mass starvation caused by Israel's blockade. The WHO's Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, spoke Wednesday.
As you know, mass starvation means starvation of a large proportion of a population. And a large proportion of a population of Gaza is starving. I don't know what you would call it other than mass starvation. And it's man-made, and that's very clear. And this is because of blockade, and I have said it in my statement, more than 80 days of blockade straight, and then of course there is opening now, but it's not enough, it's just a trickle, and people are starving.
Health officials in Gaza say at least 113 Palestinians have starved to death, including 45 over the past 4 days. Gaza officials say 500,000 bags of flour are needed each week to, quote, avoid a comprehensive humanitarian collapse, unquote. Doctors Without Borders.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life.